Good evening to our viewers at home, and welcome to Attorney General Tim Griffin here in studio to talk about several topics impacting Arkansas right now. AG Griffin, thank you so much for making the time.
Thank you for having me.
Come visit us in Fayetteville today.
Hopefully I can bring you some warm weather. It's a little bit wet out there.
Yes, I would like some warm, dry weather. That would be nice. Well, first off, let's just recap. First year in office, how has it been for you? What were some of your highlights, and maybe what are some of your goals for 2024?
Sure, it's been a great year. It went by so fast, and I'm able to mark those years going by because I have young kids, and it flies by, and all of a sudden they're grown up. But I did a lot of stuff. Still got a lot of stuff to do. First and foremost, I just wanted to make sure that I established a culture of cooperation and collaboration in the office, and really focused hard on getting the right people in the right slots. But in terms of things that the public might be familiar with, I've put a heavy emphasis on the problem of human trafficking in the state, and that have set up a law enforcement partnership to work statewide on the issue of human trafficking. A lot of people may think that that's a big city problem, but it's actually a problem everywhere, particularly where you have heavily traveled interstates. So we had a summit in the fall, and I had about 1,500 people for that human trafficking summit. And so we're really excited about the interest and the training we've been able to do there. Also, I've put a heavy emphasis on using the opioid settlement funds in a way that's going to have a lasting impact. Certainly, we use a lot of it that will be for short-term projects. But I dedicated $50 million to Arkansas Children's Hospital, including the Northwest. It'll be benefiting Northwest Arkansas, the Children's Hospital branch here, and that is to establish the National Center for Opioid Research. This is an area where we lack this sort of research for pediatrics, and we are going to, here in Arkansas, are going to have the first Center for Opioid Research. It's going to be a game changer for Arkansas in this area, and will benefit so many families. This has been a huge scourge on our communities, as you know. So those are a couple of the things. We have reinvigorated our partnerships with law enforcement and have been working really hard to expand our abilities in the cybersecurity realm. We certainly do a lot on prosecuting internet crimes against children, but we also are preparing our staff to deal with things like ransomware and potential hacks on our state voting infrastructure. You may have seen that in the news. And so there are a number of cyber steps that we need to take in the cyber realm to make sure that our cyber infrastructure is strong. But we've got a lot on our plate. We're moving into a building, as you may have read, downtown, a historic building. Why should taxpayers care about this? Because, in my opinion, over the last 3 or so decades, we've been wasting a lot of money renting. The AG's office has been renting a building. We are now going to own. And no one would rent if they were going to live in a place for decades and decades and decades. And we shouldn't be renting either. So we're really excited about that. That preparation for the move is ongoing. But we just got a lot going on. Reinvigorate our opinion section, which reviews the ballot initiatives, which you may have a question or two about. It's been in the press a lot. That process, the ballot initiative review process, is about 80 years old. It was taken away from my office for a couple years. The Supreme Court said that the way it was being done through the Election Commission for a couple years was not constitutional. So I advocated to get it back the way it had been done for a long, long time. We're doing that again. It's in the press a lot.
Definitely, yeah, the ballot initiatives, I definitely want to touch on that because we just found out that there is now a lawsuit from Arkansas Citizens for Transparency regarding their proposals that you have denied a couple times. So first off, if you could maybe just explain, like, someone submits a ballot proposal to your office, like what's kind of the process, and like, can you explain what goes through before you guys make a decision on ballots?
Well, first and foremost, as I said, this process has been in place for about 80 years. Secondly, my personal views about a ballot measure are completely irrelevant. The law does not allow my personal views to be considered. As a result, I often certify and approve ballot measures that I completely disagree with as a personal matter. I often reject measures that I actually agree with. And so the law is the guide there. This review process benefits everybody. It benefits the people proposing it, because what it does is it makes sure that they are aware of weaknesses that could really mess them up way down the road. What if people gathered thousands of signatures and got their measure on the ballot and it passed, and then it was challenged in court and was stricken because of a weakness? So this process allows us to point out those weaknesses, because we're going to have to defend some decisions down the road, right? So it's good for the people proposing. It's good for the taxpayer, for the voter. Why? Because you don't have hours in the voting booth. You need to make sure, we need to make sure that the ballot title, the text, all of that is what it should be, so that people aren't misled. So people understand precisely what people have put on the ballot. And also, this is a process that is handled by people who have worked for numerous AGs. So to answer your question directly, so someone proposes a ballot measure, I don't see it. It goes directly to the opinions department. We have a deputy attorney general for opinions. He has a staff. He reviews it, assigns it, or maybe he handles it himself. We have 10 business days to write an opinion, either approving or disapproving or proposing some different language. And then after that is done, it is run through the general counsel's office and my chief deputy. Then and only then do I see it. No one calls and says, hey, we got this proposal, how do you want me to decide? No, that's not the way it works. We're guided by the law. And so I'm the very last one to see it. In fact, we're going to have, I believe, 1 or 2 today that we will issue. I haven't seen them yet. And what will happen is they'll be emailed to me, and I will open that PDF. I'll read it. We've had about 100 opinions over the last year. I haven't changed the outcome on any. I may have some typo changes or something like that here or there, but this work product is that of the career folks, and so we put it out there. And look, I get it. People get frustrated because it's their baby in some ways. They've spent all this time and it gets rejected. But the most productive way to deal with it, if it gets rejected, contact our office and let us work with you on meeting the legal standard. Because our job under the law is to make sure that it's not misleading. And that really is for the benefit of everybody. So again, I just want to emphasize this. You're going to see a number of these opinions coming out in the coming days. We've had, I think, more ballot proposals than ever in history, I believe. And you're going to see some that I absolutely disagree with that we approve. And you're going to see some that I reject that, excuse me, that I actually love. So, we have to follow the law.
And so with this specific, with this ballot proposal from the Arkansas Citizens for Transparency lawsuit, they're saying that, you have 10 days to either certify or give a substitute and certify. And so I think their argument is that you haven't given like a substitute ballot title. So what's kind of your response to that?
Well, we laid all this out in the opinion. There are only some circumstances where we can provide a substitute. If it's unclear what someone means, for example, well, then we can't substitute better language if we're not even sure what they're talking about, right? If they're using words that aren't defined or what have you. But in these particular cases, we have we've applied the law, and if we can substitute, we often do. If we cannot, we don't. But look, I'm 100% confident in the work that my staff did on these, and I welcome the review of the Supreme Court. What the Supreme Court will do is they will review our analysis, and they'll take a look, and I think in the end, I feel really good about it.
Perfect. And what does it say to you when we're having a record amount or a potentially record amount of ballot proposals coming to your office? I mean, is that like, is this a good thing that people are getting involved with their civic duty and what they can contribute to Arkansas? Is this maybe a concern from the legislature that they're not listening to the people?
I think there are a number of factors. I think there are absolutely a number of factors. It's hard to get inside the mind of the people who propose. Sometimes you have people who just came up with an idea and pursued it. Other times you have special interest who find someone, they hire someone, and they put a lot of money behind an ad campaign down the road. So it varies. Look, here's what I would say about that. We live in a democratic republic. And in the republic, that's where you elect people, and then they speak on your behalf, right? And that's the way we normally go about making our laws. You elect your legislators, they vote on bills, the governor signs a bill into law, for example. Well, in this case, we're circumventing that and using another process or using a constitutional process. We ought to make sure that the language used is as clear as possible because it is a different route. We need to make sure if we're going to change the law for 3.3 million Arkansans, we need to make sure that it's right because it shouldn't be as easy as picking up a coffee in a drive-thru. It shouldn't be unnecessarily burdensome, but the robustness, the precision, all of these things that are required to jump through the hoops, it seems to me that's a small price to pay to make sure that it's right. And so, look, I know people on both sides get aggravated, but I sincerely believe that this 80-year process of the Attorney General, whether it's me or somebody else, playing this role, I think that's exactly the way it ought to work, and I think it works really well. The main people who get aggravated are the ones, obviously, that whose proposals get rejected. But in many cases, maybe not all, but in many cases, they'll keep coming back until it's accepted. So we'll just keep working with people, and it's part of the process.
And I know one of the issues that maybe this lawsuit brought up was, it keeps getting rejected, and then their time to get signatures becomes less and less and less.
That's a consequence of time, and I can't change time. Time is always an issue. It's an issue when you're turning in your homework for my 16 and 13-year-old. It's an issue for me when I've got to be at a meeting, and it's an issue when you've got to get signatures. Look, I can't change time. I understand that, but we certainly no one's proposing that we say, well, time's running out, so let's just put something on the ballot and just don't worry about it. Of course no one would say that. And I know you're not suggesting that. I haven't heard anyone suggest that we put incorrect proposals on the ballot simply so they have time to get their signatures. Well, and that wouldn't make sense because if you've got a misleading text, misleading substance or title, how are you going to explain to people whose signatures you want what you're doing? So it's really important that we get it right. Time is an issue, not to make light of it. Time's always an issue. My hair used to be brown. It's silver now.
Yes.
So time's always
Always
an
an
issue.
issue. All right, thank you for that response. Well, moving on now, yesterday, the Judge Davis Fox in Pulaski County dropped the FOIA lawsuit against the Board of Corrections. Can I just have your reaction to that decision?
Yeah, I think the law's crystal clear in this case, and as you know, that's not the end of the road for this suit. So, feel really good about where we are on the law, and we'll just keep going through the courts.
So you do intend to refile that law eventually?
Well, we have. It won't be precisely as you characterize it, but we have plans, and we'll be announcing them soon.
Perfect. And in that lawsuit, so you know, it was dropped because they said that you weren't able to reach an accommodation with the board, hiring their own lawyers. Is there a reason why that accommodation in that 30 days wasn't met, or is there an explanation for that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the pleadings, it makes it very clear that no one ever responded to us. But all of that is laid out very clearly in the suit, and we'll have more to say on that soon.
Okay, perfect. And so then moving on to the lawsuit, you guys are defending from the Board of Corrections regarding of the Amendment 33 violation. That injunction upheld on Friday by the Circuit Court judge, and any reaction to that and to that lawsuit?
Again, feel really confident with our position in both of these lawsuits. There are two separate lawsuits. One of them is a lawsuit that I brought on behalf of Arkansans regarding violation of the Freedom of Information Act, and also a statute that deals with the hiring of special counsel. The other lawsuit is a lawsuit that was filed against the state, against the governor, that relates to Amendment 33. I'll just say that our filings are voluminous and speak for themselves, but I feel really good about where we are, and we'll have some announcements on that soon.
Wonderful. In the meantime, do you think the state has any, or the governor, I'm sure if you can even speak to this, has any intention to work with the Board of Corrections regarding plans moving forward for prison beds, or does this all need to stay put while we're going through
I'll let the
litigation?
governor speak for herself on that.
Wonderful, thank you. So another thing that has come up recently, AMI Days has been kind of a virtual learning days has been definitely a topic, as we've seen a lot of winter weather here in Arkansas this past week. Representative Julie Mayberry is potentially proposing legislation to add some flexibility with AMI days. Is there any concern from your office with LEARN's Act already enacted that very specifically says we can't use AMI days towards the 178 required days? Is there any, if a new law comes about potentially adding more flexibility to AMI days, does that cause any conflicts?
Well, I'll just say that the legislature is a separate part of government. I respect them, and that will be between the governor and the legislators. We've certainly put out an opinion on AMI, and I will let them speak to the specifics of the administration, the Sanders administration's policy on this. But the law relates to funding and funding that is available. But that's all laid out very clearly in an opinion that, again, the very busy opinion section division of my office put out. But look, the legislature, it's their prerogative to make the laws. It's my duty to enforce the law. So I respect the role of the governor and the legislature, and I will let them work that out.
Perfect. And then earlier in this interview, you mentioned how cybersecurity moving into an election year is a big thing for your office. What are some maybe things that you're looking at as we're heading to the primary in March?
Yeah, sure. So we have a really good track record in this state, and kudos to the Secretary of State. We have a really good track record of voter integrity. We have not had any serious problems in this state, and that's because of a lot of hard work by the Secretary of State and many others. But I am working with a number of entities, including federal authorities, other state authorities, to ensure that we have the best protection and that we are aware of potential threats. And I certainly, a lot of this is as it relates to voting, is under the authority of the Secretary of State. I know for a fact that this is something that he's been working on. He's been talking with the federal government about this, and I've spoken to the FBI about it. and other folks in the federal government. So we're doing everything we can to ensure that the track record of integrity here in the state and protecting our voting process, that continues. And so I feel really good about where we are.
Wonderful. And I'm not sure if you're able to speak to this, but I hear in the cybersecurity and elections debate about going back to paper ballots versus the online electronic ballots. Is there any difference or any, in your opinion, of safety?
Well, I'll just say this: we have a great track record in the state. As it relates to that proposal specifically, as you may know, that is something that is pending or has been spoken to through our opinion section, and we are still dealing with that. So I'm not gonna speak to that specifically because that is an issue before my office right now.
Wonderful. AG Griffin, is there anything else that you would like to add or say? Any other topics that we didn't talk about?
Thanks for having me.
Well,
I
thank you.
appreciate it very much. And if you ever want to have me back, I'd love to come back up here, and maybe next time I'll bring some sunshine.
Appreciate that, AG Griffin. Thank you so much for your time.